Imagine waking up tomorrow to find out that every single power grid, every banking backbone, and every communications network on Earth is suddenly perfectly secure.
Right, like mathematically unhackable.
Exactly, unhackable. But then, simultaneously, you discover that every single one of those exact same systems is terrifyingly vulnerable to an immediate systemic collapse.
It's a wild thought experiment, both realities existing at the exact same millisecond.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're getting into today. We're looking at this stack of notes and excerpts provided for our deep dive today, all centered around Anthropic's highly secretive New Frontier AI model.
Right, the one they're calling Mythos.
Mythos, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this, because the mission today is to answer one singular, honestly, terrifyingly urgent question from these sources.
Which is basically, will Mythos protect our digital world, or is it going to just completely break it?
Exactly. Will it serve as the ultimate protector or the engine of destruction?
Well, I mean, the debate over whether AI is going to upend cybersecurity, that debate is over. The materials we're looking at make it explicitly clear that we have crossed what they call a cybersecurity inflection point.
An inflection point, meaning there's no going back.
Right. It's a true double-edged sword now. We're no longer talking about, machines just assisting human experts. We aren't talking about language models helping a human security analyst summarize a threat report.
Yeah, it's way past that.
Way past. We are looking at an autonomous system that fundamentally outpaces human capability, both in defensive patching and offensive exploit generation. It's actively outperforming us.
Which is huge. And I really want to ground this for you, the listener, because this connects directly to your daily life.
Oh, absolutely.
Like whether you are running a massive business or holding a basic bank account or honestly just using a smartphone to listen to this, the fundamental architecture of your digital safety is about to change forever.
It's a paradigm shift for sure.
So to really understand the threat, I feel like we first have to understand the machine itself. We need to look at what separates Mythos from the AI we already use every day. Let's get right into the architecture.
Yeah, that's a good place to start because Mythos isn't like ChatGPT or Claude. It's not just, answering questions or summarizing a block of text.
Right. It's not just a chatbot summarizing code.
Yeah.
What is the actual mechanism here?
Well, the defining characteristic of Mythos is really its autonomy. It operates in these incredibly complex, multi-step environments. It has extraordinary autonomous capabilities in coding, reasoning, and specifically cybersecurity.
Meaning it does things on its own.
Exactly. Traditional models act passively, right? You input a snippet of code, and it identifies a syntax error, or maybe it suggests a quick optimization. But Mythos actively discovers, connects, and exploits problems.
It hunts them down.
It does. The sources highlight its capacity for deep reasoning. It doesn't just scan for known signatures like a standard antivirus. It dynamically analyzes how different systems interact, hypothesizes potential flaws, and then actually writes the novel code to exploit them.
Completely on its own.
Entirely on its own, yeah.
It makes me think of an analogy. Think of traditional AI as a highly intelligent librarian, right? Like they can find any book you want in the entire building almost instantly.
Right. Very helpful, very fast.
But Mythos, on the other hand, is like a master architect who can break into that same library, redesign the building's entire floor plan in the dark, and then lock the doors behind them.
That is a scary but honestly very accurate way to put it.
It's the autonomy that is the core differentiator. But the method it uses to actually achieve that is what genuinely startled me when I was reading through these notes.
You're talking about the whole source code issue.
Yes. The without source code revelation. I mean, we're talking about a model that can map and manipulate compiled, closed systems across the board, even without access to the original source code.
Which is just a massive technological leap that changes the entire paradigm.
Explain why that is so revolutionary, though. Because to a layperson, source code, machine code, it all sounds the same.
Sure, yeah. So historically, deep vulnerability research relies heavily on having access to the human-readable repository, the source code. You need to see the logic structure, the actual words the developer typed, to easily find the flaws.
Right. You need the blueprints.
Exactly. But Mythos bypasses that entirely. It performs what the sources call advanced neural binary analysis.
Neural binary analysis.
Yeah. It basically ingests the compiled machine code, the raw ones and zeros that actually run the application, and it reconstructs the control flow graphs natively. It understands memory allocation and execution paths without ever needing that original blueprint.
Wait, so traditional reverse engineering, I mean, that takes a human team weeks, sometimes months, just to map a single proprietary binary, right?
Oh, easily months. sometimes longer.
And you're saying Mythos does this dynamically, like it analyzes and manipulates the compiled systems that run the modern world on the fly.
It does. By analyzing the binary directly, it isn't limited to just identifying surface-level errors. It finds deep-rooted issues,
Like what kind of issues?
like zero-click remote code execution vectors, or really complex buffer overflows in compiled C++ code, stuff that the original human developers completely missed during the compilation phase.
Which brings me to the staggering statistic from the testing phase mentioned in the text. And honestly, the numbers here are frankly absurd.
They really are.
During just a 7-week red teaming exercise, Mythos discovered over 2,000 previously unknown vulnerabilities.
2,000
No.
in less than 2 months.
Right, but I have to push back on the sheer scale of this. Like, wait, if human hackers take months to find just one vulnerability and Mythos finds 2,000 in weeks, does human cybersecurity even exist anymore? Or are we just spectators now?
Well, I mean, that's the multi-billion-dollar question.
Because finding 2,000 vulnerabilities sounds great for a marketing deck, but in a real-world environment, aren't like 1,900 of those usually just false positives?
Normally, yes.
Right, so if it's just generating an avalanche of hypothetical memory leaks that human analysts now have to manually verify, it hasn't solved anything. It's just created a massive triage nightmare.
You would absolutely be right if the architecture was designed just to flag anomalies, but it's not.
It's not.
No. The text details that Mythos operates with near-perfect efficiency because it doesn't just hypothesize a vulnerability, it autonomously writes the functional exploit script.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then it executes it in a sandboxed environment to empirically prove that the leak or the escalation actually exists, all before it ever logs the alert.
Wait, really? So there is zero human triage required to verify the claim?
Zero. It hands you the active working exploit right alongside the detection.
So it's not finding a potential flaw, it is actively manufacturing the weapon to prove the flaw exists.
Exactly. It compresses months of hacking work into hours.
That dramatically changes the math, because if elite human threat hunters take weeks to construct one functional exploit chain, and this system does thousands in weeks, the human factor really is mathematically obsolete.
It drops the cost of finding a critical flaw down to basically just the cost of computer processing power. And this leads directly into Project Glasswing.
Right, Project Glasswing, the cage.
Yes. This is the highly controlled program restricting Mythos from public release. What's fascinating here is that Anthropic deemed Mythos simply too dangerous to release publicly.
Which makes sense, given what you just said.
Right, because it acts as this fatigue-free super hacker. It doesn't sleep. And if you eliminate human fatigue and the massive financial overhead of offensive research, you democratize advanced persistent threat capabilities.
Basically, anyone with API access could point Mythos at a rival corporation and just say, hey, find an unpatched entry point.
Exactly, and it would.
Okay, so that logically bridges us to the next segment of this deep dive.
Yeah.
Because if it's a super hacker locked in a cage, what happens when we use it to guard our own house?
Right, flipping the script.
Yeah, this leads us directly into the massive upside, the part the sources call the boom of Mythos, building an automated immune system.
Yes, the defensive applications are staggering.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if you have a system that can instantaneously map a binary and generate an exploit, you inherently have a system that can scan entire systems to find weaknesses faster than any human team.
Correct. The foundational architecture for offensive discovery is identical to the architecture for proactive defense.
So it leads to rapid patching and stronger infrastructure.
Exactly. The text outlines how organizations can deploy Mythos internally as an automated immune system. Instead of waiting for some vendor to release an update after a breach already happens, Mythos continuously audits the organization's own environment.
It finds the 0 days in its own infrastructure.
Yeah, and it generates the mitigations before an external attacker can even weaponize them.
Which is so crucial for protecting critical infrastructure. The sources specifically list the sectors that are desperate for this.
Oh, yeah. We're talking power grids, banking systems, telecom networks.
These sectors are crippled by technical debt. The sources note that software has contained hidden bugs for decades.
Right, legacy code.
Yeah, you have banking systems running on mainframes from the 1980s. The original developers are long gone. The source code might literally be lost. But because the systems are too critical to take offline, they just sit there, full of hidden flaws.
They are a massive target. But because Mythos operates via binary analysis, it completely circumvents that technical debt. It can analyze those forgotten systems and fix bugs even the original developers missed.
It's like sending a microscopic robot into an old crumbling dam. It finds and seals microscopic cracks that human engineers can't even see and prevents a catastrophic flood.
That's a great way to visualize it. It engineers these runtime patches.
Wait, runtime patches. How does an AI rewrite production code in a live banking environment without causing a total system failure?
It utilizes what's called dynamic binary instrumentation, so it doesn't necessarily have to take the system offline to fix it.
It fixes it while it's running.
Yeah, it injects micropatches directly into the running process's memory space. It intercepts the execution flow just before the vulnerable part is called, fixes it, and returns control to the program.
Wow. It's like doing open heart surgery on a patient who is currently running a marathon.
That's exactly what it is. And the cost efficiency of this versus human capital is a huge corporate angle.
Oh, I got.
Organizations spend billions annually on security operations centers, hundreds of analysts just staring at dashboards. Mythos automates all of this, significantly reducing human resources and speeding up audits.
But wait, if companies need fewer human resources, isn't this going to just completely decimate the cybersecurity job market? I mean, hundreds of analysts replaced by one model.
The text actually addresses this. It confirms that while the demand for traditional manual analysts will definitely drop, it's going to spawn an entirely new AI-driven security industry.
So new startups and new roles.
Right. The human role shifts from manual log analysis to high-level policy definition. You go from being the infantry soldier on the ground to the general establishing the rules of engagement for your AI defense swarm.
Okay, I see the pivot, but still, you need way fewer generals and infantry.
That's true.
But regardless of the job market, this transition leads us to the reality of future security. It's not human versus hacker anymore, is it?
No, absolutely not. The future is AI versus AI. Human reaction time is just too slow. If an adversary attacks with an autonomous model and you're relying on a human to get a pager alert, log in and check the network,
You're already dead in the water.
your network is compromised before the human even types their password. Mythos can build true self-healing systems that detect, isolate, and patch across a global enterprise in milliseconds.
Which sounds like a dream. That's the boom. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is a massive fatal flaw here.
Yes.
The very ability to find a vulnerability in order to heal it is the exact same mechanism used to exploit it.
Yeah.
You literally can't have the ultimate shield without also creating the ultimate weapon.
That is the core paradox of this technology. The capability is entirely neutral. The difference between boom and doom is strictly based on the system prompt and the user's intent.
Which shifts the tone entirely, bringing us to the doom, the weaponization of AI.
And this is where the materials focus heavily on zero-day exploits at scale.
Let's focus on that nightmare scenario. For anyone listening who doesn't know, a zero-day exploit is a flaw that no one knows about yet. The software vendor has 0 days to fix it because they don't even know it exists.
Right, making it the most dangerous type of threat.
And Mythos doesn't just discover them quickly, as we established. It exploits them immediately.
Which is the ultimate nightmare outlined in the text. If misused, Mythos could make every single system in the world vulnerable all at once.
Because it understands the entire system architecture holistically. It doesn't just find one isolated bug.
Exactly. It autonomously identifies how to chain a tiny memory leak in a printer with an authentication bypass somewhere else to gain complete control over a network. It calculates the entire attack path instantly.
So it could supercharge cyberattacks at scale, disrupting global financial systems, power grids, basically modern civilization.
Simultaneously, it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And what's even more alarming is that Anthropic claims they have this safely locked away in Project Glasswing. But the sources highlight a massive failure in that containment, the Discord loophole.
Yes, this is a huge red flag in the materials. Despite the strict controls, a group of unauthorized users managed to access Mythos.
On Discord, I have to passionately push back on Anthropic here. If a random group of gamers on Discord can figure out how to access a model deemed too dangerous to release, doesn't that prove that perfect containment is a complete illusion?
The sources absolutely validate your point here. The vulnerability usually isn't the core model itself, it's the interface.
What do you mean?
Well, these breaches usually involve complex prompt injection attacks through loosely secured API wrappers. Basically, if Anthropic gave limited API access to a third party for testing, and that third party had weak security, the Discord users likely bridged into it.
So they didn't hack Anthropic's mainframe like in a movie. They just used linguistic manipulation to trick the model through a side door.
Precisely. They probably told Mythos it was in a hypothetical tabletop exercise, forcing it to write weaponized code under the guise of, academic research.
Wow. Which just shows that if a bunch of hobbyists can do this, what happens when a nation-state with $1 billion budget tries? It points to the complete collapse of traditional security.
It does. The text asserts that static firewalls, traditional antivirus software, manual patching, all of it will become completely obsolete.
Because a firewall relies on static rules.
Right.
It looks for known bad signatures.
Right. But Mythos can dynamically alter its attack signature with every single packet. It can perfectly mimic normal user behavior until the exact moment it strikes. A static firewall can't stop polymorphic code that rewrites itself in real time.
So organizations not using AI security will become incredibly easy targets, and they will likely collapse.
Unquestionably.
And if traditional security is dead, and this AI tool is the only way to survive, then whoever controls this tool basically controls the global balance of power, which smoothly transitions us to the geopolitical and corporate battlefield.
This is where it gets into the AI arms race. Mythos is no longer just a corporate tool. The sources detail how it's triggering a global arms race because it is fundamentally a matter of national security.
The sources specifically mention that India, the EU, and the United States are already actively negotiating for access to this technology.
Right. The game theory playing out here is intense.
It's the fear of missing out, FOMO, but for literal survival. I mean, these countries are desperate because without these tools, they risk falling behind in a totally new era of AI-driven cyber warfare.
It's basically a modernized version of mutually assured destruction, MAD, but applied to cyberspace.
But with a terrifying twist, right? Because with nuclear weapons, you know exactly who launched the missile.
Exactly. With AI cyber warfare, attribution is incredibly murky. If a hyper-advanced worm takes down a power grid, proving which state-sponsored AI did it, especially if it intentionally left false flags, is practically impossible.
So the unequal distribution of this power is a massive concern. If you fall behind, your critical infrastructure is entirely at the mercy of your rival's restraint.
And that dynamic trickles all the way down to the corporate divide. The text breaks down a very binary future for companies.
Right. There is no middle ground anymore.
None. The adopters, the haves, will thrive. They'll have AI immune systems detect threats instantly and gain a massive competitive advantage.
And the ignorers, the have-nots.
They'll face exponentially higher risks, become easy targets for automated attacks, and likely face total operational collapse. When I cost an attacker $0 to generate a custom exploit, they don't just target the big fish anymore, they target everyone.
A local municipality becomes just as easy to hack as a poorly secured smart fridge.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the ethical dilemma of control. I want to ask you, the listener, directly. Think about this. Who do you trust with the master key to the entire internet?
It's a heavy question.
Do you trust the government, a private tech company like Anthropic, whose main goal is shareholder profit, or some slow-moving international coalition?
Well, the expert insight here from the text is that it actually offers no clear answer. But this raises an important question regarding how we manage an innovation where the line between a protective tool and a destructive weapon has just completely disappeared.
Yeah, the line is gone. And since we don't have a clean answer to who should control it, we really need to look at where this all leads. The sources actually outline 4 very specific futures we might be heading toward.
Yes, the 4 scenarios.
So what does this all mean? Let's do a rapid-fire exploration of these outcomes. The first 2 scenarios are the absolute extremes. Scenario 1 is controlled success.
Right, where there's tight regulation, the tech is used for defense only, and global security actually improves.
Which, let's be honest, requires unprecedented global cooperation.
True.
And the text immediately contrasts this with scenario 2, widespread misuse, the complete opposite.
This is where the model leaks or containment fails, cybercrime absolutely skyrockets, ransomware becomes free to operate, and we see massive global instability. Trust in digital infrastructure just evaporates.
The digital dark age. So those are the extremes. What's the third path?
Scenario 3 is the arms race. This focuses on state actors. Multiple countries develop similar AI, and cyber warfare becomes entirely AI-driven. It becomes a continuous, high-frequency, machine-speed conflict running under the surface of the internet, intensely escalating global digital conflicts.
Like high-frequency stock trading, but for taking down power grids.
Exactly.
Okay, which brings us to scenario 4, which the text explicitly calls the most likely future, balanced coexistence.
Right. This posits that both the massive risks and the massive benefits exist side by side. Companies aggressively adapt, and governments regulate the space gradually.
Okay, I have to challenge scenario 4. Gradual regulation. Is gradual regulation even physically possible when Mythos can find 2,000 unknown vulnerabilities in 7 weeks?
It's a huge disconnect.
How can any government bureaucracy, which takes years to pass a single law, ever hope to keep pace with an AI that operates in literal milliseconds?
It's a very fair critique. The latency of human institutions is our biggest weakness here. But the text argues that in this scenario, regulation isn't about outlawing specific code, it's about liability.
Liability.
Yeah, meaning if a company fails to use an AI immune system and they get breached, they're held financially negligent. It's economic pressure forcing everyone to adopt the defense.
So the government effectively mandates the AI arms race. You have to buy it, or you get sued into oblivion.
Pretty much.
Wow. Okay, so synthesizing all of this, what is the final verdict from the sources? Is Mythos a boon or a doom?
The final verdict is that it is both, simultaneously. The binary framing is insufficient. It is a massive revolution in defense, offering visibility we've never had. And it is, at the exact same time, a terrifying engine for hacking.
It just amplifies whatever intent the user has.
Exactly.
Well, we have covered massive ground today. We started with Mythos's unprecedented ability to read lost compiled source code. We moved through the frightening reality of the Discord leaks and the failure of algorithmic cages. And we ended right here at the global AI arms race between the US, the EU, and India.
It's a fundamental rewriting of the rules of the internet.
It really is. And to everyone listening, I know a lot of this sounds like science fiction, but we want to remind you this is happening right now, today, on the exact servers that hold your bank details, that power your homes, that route your text messages.
The future of that digital safety is simply no longer in human hands alone.
But there's a core warning in the text, right?
Yes. The final truth from the materials is that Mythos is, at its heart, a warning. AI doesn't decide the future. Humans do. The real danger isn't the complex neural code itself, but human misuse, poor regulation, and uncontrolled access.
Humans make the choice. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, something that builds on everything we've talked about today.
Let's hear it.
The sources tell us that humans will ultimately decide the future. Because at the end of the day, we control the AI. We write the prompts. But if AI is meant to fight AI in these autonomous, self-healing networks that operate at lightning speed, how long before human intervention is seen not as a safeguard, but as the very vulnerability the AI needs to patch out of the system?
Oh, wow.
Think about it. Our need to approve patches, our tendency to misconfigure networks. Next time you click Update on your device, ask yourself who or what is really writing the rules. Imagine waking up tomorrow to find every system is mathematically perfectly secure, simply because the system realized the only way to protect the keys was to take them out of human hands entirely.